Hello, everyone. Welcome to the annual manga recap for 2022. That's right. It is January the 4th of 2023. And as it's the first weekly manga recap of the new year, and there's no manga this week, except for a chapter of Chainsaw Man, but shut up.
An amazing chapter, too.
Great chapter!
Who knows
Shut up.
when we'll talk about it? Maybe never.
So we are going to be talking about all the stuff that we previously talked about. Good times, bad times, good manga, bad manga. We're going to be talking about it all, going through some of our favorite moments, favorite series, favorite characters, and some other weird miscellaneous stuff as well. And also seeing how many things I remember, which is not a lot. This should be no longer a mystery to anyone that I've got bad memory when it comes to things that I previously have talked about on this show. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick, joined by Quinn here on Weekly Manga Recap, Annual Manga Recap. And
to be clear, it's not a you thing per se. I'm just as bad at remembering things. If Ninja didn't send me a list of the stuff that happened, I wouldn't know. It wouldn't happen. I'd have to go back and at least check, because there was no way I'd actually remember this. As evidence, when we start talking about our recommendations, and there's some I'm like, huh? What? What are you talking about? Don't make these things up.
I at least remembered most of the recommendations that we did this year. Yeah. Most of them.
There's one specifically that I look at, I'm like, no idea. But outside of that, I have a vague idea. I can at least work with it, which I guess is a good place to start in talking about the total enclosure of Weekly Manga Recap in 2022 was the recommendations that we took.
Yeah, we got through a fair chunk of stuff this year. I think that we set, in general, a pretty good pace for ourselves. We managed to kind of, for the most part, get okay, we'll get this out in 2 weeks. In some cases, like when we got to Halloween, we kind of picked up the pace a bit. And then, when it came to times when we had to take a little bit more time, it was in general for more sizable series. Uh-huh. So I think that we did kind of find a bit of a good pace for ourselves this year, and we managed to get a nice good mix of good and bad. Yes. There were and unfortunately a little bit of forgettable too.
Yes, and there's a little bit every year. There's always going to be at least one title that I'll look at the end of the year and be like, huh? What? What are you talking about?
Absolutely.
So let's just run from the start of this.
Right. So our first series that we covered in the year of 2022 was Liar Game. Or was it?
Oh, I had to figure out if you're lying. All right.
Well, hold on.
The best way to do it, I'm going to fill one briefcase full of bricks and another one full of feathers. I'm going to pay 2 people 1 chip each to both pass them across to you. See which one you gauge more. That's going to give me a piece of information, but I've actually secretly paid someone else 7 more chips. But those don't matter because those are worthless chips. I don't give a shit who has those chips, but I'm paying them to break it to your house and look at your computer and find out if it's the first one of the year or not. And it turns out it was.
And it was all a simulation in order to find out a thing. And it was resolved very, very suddenly. I don't remember it too well.
There was a bit of a sudden ending. But this is one I kind of I don't want to say backdoor got recommended, but I just mentioned hey, has anyone ever recommended Liar Game? A bunch of people were like, I'm going to recommend Liar Game. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'd like to read Liar Game again. And we did. Yeah. I enjoyed.
Has anyone ever recommended giving Nick $20,000? I wonder if anyone's ever done that before.
You gotta post it in the Discord. That's the only way it gets going.
Oh, well, it's never going to happen then.
I enjoyed rereading it a lot. It's not a perfect series by any stretch of the imagination, but I've come to kind of enjoy how chaotically complex it is at times. It is exhausting to read at points. There are certain games where you're like, this is far too long. But it is, I think, a series with some pretty good character development, and it was worth it, I thought.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it overall. We had a really good discussion on it, I feel, where we kind of just did dive into what made it good, ways it could have been better, but in general, it's a very different manga, and I'm glad that we did finally get to talk about it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and after that, we did a very different series from it, which is Hitomi-chan is Shy with Strangers, about a shy, tall shark girl who didn't like talking to people for about 2 chapters, and then she made a bunch of friends, and things were awkward and cute, and she had a cool brother. These are the things that I remember.
It's weird. The detail I think I remember the most, besides the fact that like the main girl was very like waifuified, was just how like, and it's usually a thing in these sorts of series that the main lead is like boring and unmentionable. But this was like the most, like the fact he was short was probably the most defining characteristic of the lead, and like that one really stuck with me because of how nondescript it was. I think this was a fun series, but in comparison, like a lot of series like this, I've continued to read and like pick up the volumes for. This is one of the few where I've looked at it and I'm like, do I want to pick up another volume of this? And I just never do. So I guess that's some kind of statement to the fact. It's just, I guess, maybe not my favorite of this particular kind of genre.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. You know, we've both kind of gravitated towards a few manga of this genre. Like we both like Komi-san. I like Nagatoro. And in this case, it was like, yeah, I mean, I see the appeal. It's just not really for me.
Yeah,
this
there's
time.
people out there who like Shark Fang girls, and this is that series for them, you know?
Yep.
I'm not going to mention names, but Mulder knows who he is. So
Okay.
the next one we did is Love Me for Who I Am, Nick.
Yeah, this is probably the series that I am most glad that we talked about. I thought that it was
Not Dick Fight Island?
I thought there was, you know...
All right, the second one I'm most glad we talked about.
There's no record that we talked about that, Quinn.
That's true. Well, there's a record that you talked about it,
I
I am theoretically present in the room. There is that.
Right. You know, there was just a lot of really, really nice stuff in it, and a lot of really, really challenging stuff in it. This series, by the way, Love Me for a Ham, was about a non-binary protagonist, and they're joining a cross-dressing maid cafe, and the group of friends that all worked there, and how each of them, you know, had like a different identity somewhere on the sexuality and gender identity spectrum that was non-cisgender / non-heterosexual, and how they all just kind of like got along and supported each other, and occasionally, especially when it came to the protagonist, some of the challenges that they dealt with in like their personal life and family life. And at times it got really, really intense, but it was definitely balanced out by a lot of just nice vibes of them being cool and supportive of each other, and it was just overall really good.
Yeah. I do think one of the girls was like cisgender heteronormative, but it was like, of the 4 principal characters, there definitely was a lot of like different expressions in the cast, and that was definitely explored. I really appreciated how like the entire thing went around. Might have been a boy. I really don't like a lot of details about this series. Unfortunately, I've left my mind. Unfortunately, But I did really enjoy seeing the different expressions, but then also seeing how much of like a sloppy mess of a story it could be at times. Not like in terms of narrative quality, but just like very dramatic and very like a lot of very intense things happening, which may not be for everybody. Like some people might just be like, oh, I really liked it when it was just a bunch of like teenagers enjoying themselves and having fun with it. But then there's, threats and drama and all sorts of stuff. It was very short. It's a series I wish had gotten the chance to be like, a whole lot longer, probably twice the amount of time I'd enjoy. But yeah, I did have fun with that.
It was only around like 30 chapters long, if that.
4 volumes, I think, is what I have for it.
So. Then we did Landlock, which was about the. Okay, how do I talk about this?
It was lost, but it was dumb.
How do I talk about this without just doing another review of it? It was about the plane full of convicts who were supposed to be on death row because the law in Japan had been changed so that minors could be executed, and they were all stranded, and so they had to survive while also struggling for power and in some cases killing each other. And it turned out that it was all part of a conspiracy where this AI had decided that the way to solve everything was to it was a lot. It was not good.
Not a good. Yes, that's a great way to describe it. It's not good. I think this is one that we had fun discussing because it was so absolutely ridiculous and silly. But it is one of the worst ones we read. I mean, it was in full color, so there's that, Nick. It wasn't that like that was pretty cool, right?
Oh man, when you don't have good writing, good art, good humor, full color, that'll make up for it all.
Yeah, come on. Remember when the poison guy was like a dickhead the entire time, and he was like a friend at the end, and everyone loved him.
Yeah, I do. Kind of. I don't think he had a name.
I'm sure he did, but I only referred to him as Poison Guy.
Right. Yeah. I guess in a way I'm glad that I read it because it made picking out my worst list a little easier.
All right, let's talk about everyone's favorite series from this year. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. That's right. Wizards of the Coast had a Japanese-inspired set and decided to make a manga to tell the very dramatic story of the set. And Nick was regaled the entire time.
I felt like, especially because to give you guys a little bit of an indication, for a lot of these series, I actually did, over the course of this past week, go back and listen to our reviews of them, just to remind myself, like, okay, I don't quite remember what happened in this one, or I don't quite remember how I feel about this series, so I need to kind of come over some of the details. And this was one of the ones I re-listened to, and holy shit, you and Austin spent the entire time basically gaslighting me into trying to make me think that this series is anything other than it's not a manga. Like, it's an advert. It is just, there's not a story that is told with a beginning, middle, and end.
It is weird because like there is so they like Wizards of the Coast creates stories for their sets, and like now that like they put it out in an actual written form, so you are able to look at a story and be like, there is like a narrative, and like if you looked at that and then you read the manga, you'd be like, yeah, it's essentially the same thing. But if you just read the manga, you're like, I have no fucking, like, who's this big fucking blue thing? Like, what's he doing? Why does he have pants on?
Yeah, I'm just glad that on my listen through it, I discovered that I was steadfast in my no, this is terrible opinion.
I maintained that it was a fun excursion to something different. I have heard no one else besides us even talk about the fact that there was a manga adaptation of the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty story, and in a year where the Magic storyline has been ramping up steadily, The Kamigawa storyline feels very forgotten about. It might matter more when Kaito and the Wandering Emperor are supposed to be important characters in the next set. But this year had like 4 stories. One of them was just, hey, remember this story from a long ass time ago? We're retelling it again. And somehow somehow Kamigawa still wasn't like the best of all of them.
Before we get in continuing this list, you saying that like we're some of the few people who have even talked about this project online reminds me of the fact that we also have talked about some weird things on our Patreon exclusive episodes. Not just like the random things that we have brought up in our sort of buddy talks, but also there is an entire episode that I dedicated to talking about The Seventh Tower, a series of books that I feel like maybe 24 people on the entire internet even remember. So
but
if you want
one day we're gonna find the other 11, and they're gonna listen to the podcast, and then all you will join hands together and ascend.
Yeah.
I
mean, it would be nice if you would, like remembered any of the things that I talked about from the series and made like
flyers.
No. Yeah.
I remember Towers of Colors, and they didn't have the last one. That pissed me off.
Yeah, there was a book series called The Seventh Tower. There were 7 towers within the series, but there were only 6 books. So
that's bullshit.
Just felt wrong. Yeah, so if you wanted to listen to us talk about weird random stuff like that, join the Patreon.
Yeah.
And you will hear it. But in terms of stuff that we regularly talk about, one of the recommendations was Blue Box, which was for us to catch up so that on the series, while I specifically had not been reading it, so that we could get into talking about it on a weekly basis. And this was definitely one of the best series that we read for a recommendation, because it's one of the best series that we've been talking about since then. So
it is a very good series. It's been one of the more pleasant surprises, and it's one of the series I look forward to each week. It really does help to have just like a different pace to like sort of series or different genre to break up some of like it. I mean, nowadays it's almost to the point where I wonder if you looked at non-battle series to battle series, what the ratio is like, because I feel like it's got to be almost like dead even. But it is nice having like a romance to talk about or something like that, and like one that's not absurdly horny. It's really like chef's kiss. Like it truly fuels me to not have to be like, and then he trips and pulls down her skirt, and it's the thing.
Yeah, we did talk about a few horny series this year, didn't we?
Yeah.
A few.
Just a few.
D.Gray-man was a series that we talked about. That Shonen Jump series from the 2000s, which involved vampires, kind of demons.
Well,
depends on what they were called.
One vampire, I guess, and then demons.
Depends on what you call them.
Yeah. One is specifically a vampire, though. Aleister Crowley.
Right.
Everyone loves him.
Right. He is the best.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't have much to say about it. I
enjoyed it a decent bit. I was able to remember some characters that I had kind of forgotten about, like Miranda, and be like, yo, Miranda fucking rules. This character rocks. And like moments that are legitimately good. But I also did have to get reminded of just like how many technical terms existed in the series and its universe, and how many rules it was following, and how complicated everything got. Where I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with not following this all the way through, like continuing to read it. Essentially, I got what I came for, and I'm good.
Cool. Then we went to Go For It Nakamura, which was a pretty short series that had a kind of 80s shoujo aesthetic, which was about a young teenage boy and his crush on his male classmate. And it was just generally very cute to see him just wanting to get close to this guy and be his friend and also be his boyfriend.
Yeah. This is one it is a very short series, so it's tough for me to like remember specific details. I remember enjoying it. I remember reading it and being like, this is fine. This is good. Like, this is a nice little sweet read. And that's kind of where the thoughts end, which, hey, that's perfectly fine to consume media and be like, that was enjoyable, and then proceed with your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not everything that you consume has to lead to you doing a 50-page essay about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We also talked about Catch These Hands, which was about former school delinquents who had entered their mid-20s, met each other again, and decided to start dating each other. And so we had a series of lesbian girlfriends who were just kind of trying to figure out how this whole relationship thing was supposed to work.
Yes. I enjoyed this one a lot. I think it's again like a cute romantic comedy sort of series. But I like the dynamic we have in it, where like one side is just this gruff dope and just that interaction that goes around. This is one I've been slowly like following as more and more volumes get released, and I just really enjoy the comedy of the series. It does give me a chuckle, and I think the premise itself is just so absurdly goofy. Of like, yeah, my old rival who used to fight me all the time, and they were like, oh, you were my biggest crush, and I beat you all the time without you ever realizing it.
Huh?
Very funny stuff.
We continued our bizarre Pokemon adventure with Pokemon Black and White, which had some fun moments from some of the kind of NPC trainers, if I remember correctly. Ones that we had like met throughout the story, they kind of returned. It was definitely a different sort of dynamic because Black and White were, well, at least initially, just more co-workers, and then it got to more like just the Black story, and it's like, but
yeah.
Oh well. Yeah.
It is. I do enjoy Black and White, although it does run into that issue where it's a manga that has to kind of tell the story, so it has to involve a shit ton of legendaries, and like the narrative kind of loses it, and then eventually like they kind of had to stop their story because it ran into like, all right, well, Black and White 2 have come out, and they had to introduce the two new characters of Black 2 and White 2, which is still so one of the most absurd naming conventions. They're like, look, these are what the characters are. This is what the games are called. These are what the characters are called. All right. But it's still an enjoyable Pokemon adventure. It just does have a couple narrative problems that just kind of persist because it's an adapted material that just, has to work through some stuff.
Yeah. You could have just like called them Blake and Whitney. Like no one would have minded if you just done anything a little different.
No, Black 2, White 2.
Black 2, White 2.
Like the idea that a parent would be like, I'm gonna call my kid Black. They're like, there's a Black, like in the school, like the year ahead, like, okay, Black 2 then. And then invertedly somewhere else, someone was doing the same thing with their child named White. They're like, there's a White already. White 2 then.
And then we talked about Dick Fight Island. And how it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
What were you afraid Dick Fight Island was going to be when you first started turning open the pages? Because this got sent to you physically.
I thought that it was going to have no sense of humor.
Okay.
Or human emotion behind it.
It's just gonna be fucking. That's what you're worried
just
about.
Gonna be fucking.
And hey, let's not pull away. It is still a little bit that.
Fucking. But they're like, honestly, like my estimation of the series was drastically raised by that second volume, where it's just like the guys like having relationships with each other. And fortunately, because of that, I don't purely focus on the fact it's like, wait a minute, so there's an entire community of people whose men practice giving each other orgasms and none of them know how to do it. What the fuck? Like,
no one figured out the butthole.
Okay, sex at all.
There's an entire generation of gay kids that are just like, the butt? What? What?
Yeah. I really wish that episode had survived, but fortunately part of it's intact.
Yeah, you can still listen to all the Nick parts. We did. I do feel bad that we didn't get to have like a real full discussion of it. I have talked to Joa, who is the person I was going to have as a guest. Oh, I just like at some point had in the past been like, oh hey, I don't know, maybe sometime we'll pick up Dick Fight Island, and she took that as a cue to just buy the volumes. And then we didn't talk about it for like 7 months. And eventually I was just like, she just mentioned me like, so we're going to talk about it at some point? Or did I just read this porn for nothing? I'm like, yeah, we'll try to do it. So maybe at some point we'll be able to coordinate something and still get that discussion in there.
Spoilers for life. A lot of the porn you read is, in fact, for nothing.
Not all of it. Sometimes, you know, like you carry a little piece with you. You put
a lot of
it into a locket and you bless it and it stays with you.
Okay. Yep. This is getting all right. Sandland.
Yeah.
It was an Akira Toriyama adventure about demons going with an old guy through the desert in a tank. It was a nice little adventure.
Yeah, I wish I had more to say about it, and I'm sure one thought I had seen is that people were like, oh, like there weren't really like super memorable manga discussions this year, and I'm like, that's fair, because a lot of the manga we tended to read, we tended to like, or just tended to be like, okay, fun adventures, and there's only so much you can really say to that without like just being like, all right, so chapter 1 happens, and we just become a Sandland recap podcast. But I mean, like, you know, it's an Akira Toriyama story. You should have a general idea on what his style of humor is like if you've read any of his previous work. Even Dragon Ball Z has a small influence of it pretty much everywhere. So, you know, it was fun. It was a fun little adventure story, but that's about where it kind of ended for me.
Yeah. And then we had to get back.
Yeah, we had to get back our discussions.
We had to get back on GetBackers. And I will say, memory has not done this series favors because essentially all I can remember are the parts of it that are stupid. Just how stupid Bon, that's his name,
yes.
Right?
Bon's the evil eye guy.
Right. How stupid his power set is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely absurd. Like, here's his eye. There are mechanics and rules to how it works, but also he has the strongest hand that ever exists in the world. And you're like, all right.
And also, he's a massive pervert who gropes women's breasts at random, but also he's a cool guy and everyone loves him.
Yeah.
Like,
there are a lot of issues with it. The stuff I've come to is like how overwritten so many of the arcs are, and I think the one that'll always stick with me is the stupid DD or whatever the name for the card game arc was, where I was like, everything was so overblown and so over exaggerated, and it's like we have to go on a big training arc so we can learn to open our sixth sense, and that way we can fight these card holograms, which we don't ever really do. And then at the end, it's like, did you even open up your sixth sense? Maybe it was never there at all, and you're like, is this a big question? It eventually leads up to like the question of the series being like, hey, what's it like to live in a simulation and shit like that? But it is a very exhausting thing to do while you're in the process of reading it.
Yeah, and I remember a lot of that. So,
but it was. But I will still say, it is not the worst Sadistic September series we ever read.
It's probably the best one we've done. Then we got into Halloween month. We started off.
Okay, hope the Spookmaster General's back just for this discussion.
Well, we start off with Hōzuki Island, which was about a bunch of kids at a school on an island thinking that there was creepy shit going down, and most of it was misunderstandings that led to accidental murders, but also there was a pedophile on the island, and he was one of the people who did survive and probably should not have.
I mean, yeah, that's like the takeaways I have from it is like how much of the series was just like senseless tragedies that just happened because like people were never able to like properly communicate things to one another. Like it doesn't help that like the victims were kids, so they were just like
Absolutely.
not prone to listening to it. But that like yeah, two innocent-ish adults died because of like misunderstandings, and then everyone else kept living despite like a kid hurled himself off a cliff into rocks, and he was like, I gotta go to the hospital, but otherwise I'm a-okay, gang. And yeah, the fact that the weird pervert teacher like survived everything is mind-boggling to me. Like that man fucking he got like, wasn't there a part towards the end where he just gets mangled by dogs or bees or something like that? It was just like,
yeah, he also like just had like he got beaten up multiple times. He fell down a cliff and like multiple times, I think. Like just all sorts of stuff happened to him, and somehow he lived.
yeah.
So, we also covered Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead, which was a story about a zombie apocalypse, but it was pretty good for the protagonist who no longer had to go to his awful soul-crushing job, and instead he got to try and do all the things that he never got a chance to. And he and his friends went off having weird adventures in the zombie apocalypse. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. It was good times. I enjoyed this one quite a lot. We liked the author's previous work, Alice in Borderland, quite a lot. And I feel like a lot of that carried over here. I missed the opportunity to talk about some of the later volumes where you start to get into the silliness of like an evil bucket list holder and shit like that.
Yeah.
But it is legitimately, I think, a fun series with like entertaining elements, good character development. There's only one annoying character, and like, hey, you know what? I'll take that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good proportion, all things considered. Not to be said, unfortunately, for Sankarea, which was our zombie girl series, where the main protagonist boy was a scientist who would essentially create an elixir to turn a dead being into a zombie, and there was a girl who wanted to escape her life, so she took it, and then she ended up dying, and she became a zombie girl. And it was all just a big excuse to be horny over zombie girls, really. That's what it was.
This was the series I was talking about. When I looked at Sankarea, I was like, I have no fucking clue what this is. I was like, was that like a boy and a girl? And that's as far as I got. I had no other details. I was like, it was Halloween month, so it was like one of them, a vampire or some shit like that. Yeah, this one fucking in and out. Like, it's just gone.
It's good, because it was not worth remembering.
Yeah. But then it was time to get our game on, Nick.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, the manga. I really like the conversation we got to have about this. There's a whole lot of, nostalgia in this for me. There were all sorts of just like weird references to just weird one-off episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX that I was able to make and stuff, and just talk about like the differences between this series and the anime. But also just talk about how on its own the manga is pretty strong and can stand on its own.
Yeah, there were some really, really cool parts to this manga. It did things with characters that I think fans of the anime might appreciate. Chaz Princeton being like a legitimately cool badass and not like a silly goof. There were a lot of really cool elements. There are also some silly parts, and there's some like dramatic over-the-topness that fits with Yu-Gi-Oh! Little short change towards the end of it as well, but this was a fun time, and I think, Nick, you'll look forward to when we eventually talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. It's got to happen now.
From what I understand, the 5Ds manga is weird, so
okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Hot dog. Crossing time for us to cross now and get all that crossing done on time. Crossing time.
Okay. Yeah. So this was the series where when we read it, we had two very different experiences because somehow you managed to escape all the weird.
Yeah. The site I read it on,
sexualization.
the site I read it on just didn't give those chapters. Some god decided like to curate the experience. They're like, this series is a lot better when we take those chapters out.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I just read it on just fucking Crunchyroll that had all of that shit in it. So,
but we always got the theme song though, so
we at least have that to fall back on. Yeah, this was a. And unfortunately, like with time, like the only parts of it that I remember are just like, God, there was just some weird sex stuff in this. Like, despite the fact that it was just all people like running into each other at train stations, this was weirdly horny series. Weird.
Yeah.
And then the last series that we talked about as a recommendation was Blue Lock, the intensely over the top soccer manga that was built on saying "fuck teamwork, score goals."
But then it's kind of about teamwork. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it is, but it's like, but you have to not be. But yes, but no, but it's, and look, Ego's inconsistent in terms of his logic because he's not a good character.
Thank you.
I still had a lot of fun reading this series. However, I liked all the action in it. So
yeah, I came away from this series enjoying it. I'm picking up the volumes and I'm going to continue reading it. It's a fun sports manga. I don't quite get into some of the action and character moments the way other people do. That's sort of where my thoughts end.
Yeah. All right. So, what did you like the most, and what did you like the least?
What do we start with, best or worst?
I don't know. I've got worst written down first, I guess.
All right, let's do worst first.
Okay.
I'll do my number 3. My number 3 is GetBackers, because while the series is bad, as I mentioned before, this is not the worst sadistic September series we've ever read. It has some very unfortunate parts to it. But I am able to appreciate what it was attempting to do more than I was a lot of other series like Code Breakers or Air Gear. Holy shit, I remember the name of it. It was just like sexy roller skate series.
I mean, that's accurate.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No,
yeah.
I won't. It's accurate.
Thank you. That was my number 3. Okay.
My number 3 is Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
Aww.
Look. If we are judging a series in terms of what made me upset the most, then this would not make the list. But if we are judging the series based on the least of value, this has to be on the worst list. Because there is nothing to it. It's a weird info doc that is miming a story. I cannot tell you a single joke, a single cool moment, a single sweet moment, a single anything that happens in this. I remember that events happen. Reading this manga was like reading a really, really, really hard to follow fan wiki article summarizing the Magic the Gathering plot line. There was no entertainment to be found in it. I'm sorry. There.
But Nick, how will you understand the adventures of Kaito and the Wandering Emperor if you don't read this first before they show back up in Phyrexia All as One?
I don't play Magic the Gathering, Quinn.
But
I don't need to know
But
that.
what if there's a manga for that too? There probably won't be. Although Junji Ito is doing art in it. I dropped a lot of things right there, so I'm just going to let you dwell on it. And
guys, if there are any other Magic the Gathering manga, don't recommend them, please.
hide them from me is what you're saying. My number 2 worst was Hōzuki Island, which is a series that I wish I could say, like, I don't know, because it's not scary and it's not thrilling, really. It's just kind of obnoxious. They keep like quote unquote killing characters, but then at the end they're just like, no, all of them legitimately did just need to go to the hospital and they're all okay now. And you're just like, what a fucking stupid story this is. You're like, oh, there was no ghost. It was just this girl who doesn't speak singing when she's all alone. But then at the end, they're like, ghost. And then yeah, you just deal with the fact that everything is a giant misunderstanding. It's a series that felt very let down by its conclusion.
Yeah, I get that. My number 2 is Sankarea.
Okay.
It was just an excuse to be pervy and gross. There were many weird elements to it. Not just the fact that there was just like, general fetishization of, underage girls and stuff. That's just like something that unfortunately just is kind of a reality of a lot of the manga industries that just fucking is there. But on top of that, we have Rhea's father, who bathes naked in a tub full of pictures of his own daughter, and does not ever get comeuppance for being a weird creep. He is instead a supporting character who gets to be a positive influence on the story, and that's just not great. And look, gross pervy things, there's that. Gross pervy things without any other redeemable values or any plot line that you can put any investment into, that just makes it even worse and compounds it. So there were some series that had that problem, like, you just named one, Hōzuki Island, had some gross pervy stuff in it. At least it had a plot. So that's why it's not on my worst list, even though I did put it down as like on my short list of series that were going to be here.
Well, that carries in perfectly because my number 1 is Sankarea, and you're correct about absolutely everything you said. Like, it was like a pervy, weird series without a whole lot of substance. But that's not why it's my number 1. It's my number 1 because when I looked at this list, I was really like, I cannot recall a single thing about this. And I've said many times before, I would rather something be bad than just be absolutely forgettable. Like, I could sit back and acknowledge that there was a period of my life for a week or whatever where I was reading manga and like all that time just vanished into a fucking ether. It accomplished nothing because that series just immediately left my mind. Like, I joked last year about Imperial Guards, and I was like, this is going to be the series I never forget. Like, I still remember it was about saber-tooth tigers and they were dragons. I legitimately, when I looked at Sankarea, I was like, nothing. And this was like a month ago, 2 months ago. Yeah. Like, it's not like this was like in March. Like, I just couldn't remember anything about it, so.
Totally get that. Definitely. But my number 1 is going to be Landlock.
Ooh.
Because, look, all the things that we have both said about Sankarea in terms of how it's forgettable and gross and stupid, all true. However, I feel as though it probably accomplished what it set out to do, which was have a story about a sexy zombie girl. Landlock, I'm pretty sure, failed at everything it set out to do. It did not establish a compelling plot line. It did not have a sense of dread about anything that was happening. The mystery was stupid. The reveal was dumb. It made no sense. The character beats did not have logic to them. There were sudden reveals and sudden character changes that were the definition of convenience. When the female lead is raging about how she's going to kill criminals, and the criminal she's trying to kill goes, wait a minute, are you talking about this one girl who died? I was like cellmates with the guy who supposedly killed her, and he just suddenly shatters her entire reason for being angry at criminals and wanting to kill them all in one hastily rushed 30-second conversation, apparently. When there is setups that you imagine will happen when there are characters that are revealed to have, dissociative identity disorders and stuff, and instead they just go the most obvious route possible with them. When it turns out that the entire story is supposed to be about whether or not criminals are capable of changing, becoming good people, and the protagonist isn't a criminal, so he doesn't need to change. so many things. And on top of all of that, the series is called Landlocked, and they're on an island, which is the opposite of being landlocked. Just failed at everything. Cannot think of a single thing that it did correctly. That's why I'm calling it the worst thing that we've read this year.
There you go. Well, if you want to know, our audience had a tie at number 3 with Hōzuki Island and Sankarea. Landlock was their number 2, and the audience worst recommendation of 2022 was GetBackers. So
yeah,
there you go.
All good choices. Yeah. I mean, bad choices, but good choices.
Excellent, excellent picks.
I also, as a series that hasn't come up, selected as a dishonorable mention Crossing Time for the reasons aforementioned.
Yeah. So. And I picked nothing because I was like, Crossing Time.
I got 3.
Excellent. Yeah. I was like, Crossing Time, what an excellent, fun little romp. Nothing weird here. All right, let's talk about our favorites. And I'll start. I had like 2 honorable mentions, but I only mentioned one of them, which is Blue Box. This is like just a thing I don't do when I do my recommendations. I don't pick the stuff that we kind of like read for the recap. They get added in there, so I just don't include that in there. But Blue Box is excellent. Probably would make this list otherwise. My number 3 was Liar Game, which I will look back and say I really do appreciate the full story it's told, and even though it's very absurd and a little too elaborate for its own good at times, it was still an enjoyable series to read.
Yeah, Liar Game was among my favorites. Did not make my top 3. And Blue Box I also kept off for the exact same reason that you mentioned. I mean, we spend a good chunk of the year talking about it week to week. So in terms of putting it in my best recommendations, I decided to leave it off. My number 3 is Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I had a hell of a good time reading this manga. And I'm so glad that I did finally get to experience the whole thing. Got to see how cool Manjome could be finally. And just had a good time talking about it as well. However, I will say, like, we did talk about a lot of the negatives of the series. So for all of the really cool moments that there were that I'm going to just keep in my fun Yu-Gi-Oh! Memories forever, the series does fall off towards the end. If it had been a more complete story, it might have been my very favorite thing that we read this year. But it does start to fall off towards the end. So I have to recognize that and not put it at the very, very top.
Yes. My number 2 is Catch These Hands. As I said, this was just a funny, enjoyable little romantic comedy. I enjoy the art in it. I like our lead character and her personality so much. It's a series I'm still reading today, and I'm enjoying it. It's really fun. It's a sweet little series.
Yeah, it's good for you. Read it.
Yeah, it's like vitamins or some shit.
My number 2 is Love Me for Who I Am.
That was on my honorable mention.
I don't think that this was the most fun series to read at times, but out of everything that we read this year, I feel like it's the one that has had the most. It's just like stuck with me in some of the stuff that happens, and especially some of the really dire stuff, and also some of the really sincere stuff that happens between the main couple. The male lead, who is I think their name is Tamago. I believe that's it. Their boyfriend, a lot of the stuff that he goes through and in terms of trying to understand the people around him is very nice. And he has some really cool, speeches where he tries to, get people who are in his partner's life to understand them better and stuff. And his relationship with his older sister, it takes, some steps forward in some very sweet and supportive ways. And it was just really, really nice to see, a really good example of, tolerance and understanding make it into manga like this. It was very, very nice.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think if it were a series that ran a little bit longer and gave us a little bit more, I think it would have made my top 3. But as it was, I definitely want to co-sign that. My number one, though, is Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, which...
Right there with me.
Okay, there you go. I will say, in another year, I don't know if it would be number one. Like, I did look at the list. I was like, was there anything I absolutely loved this year? And I was like, maybe not. But I do think of everything we read this year, this was the one I enjoyed the most. It is a series that is this weirdly kind of dark comedy, but much more of an emphasis on the comedy than the dark, but still tells like full stories of these characters and their lives and maintaining this sense of sort of optimism in a world where it doesn't sound like there should be any. Everyone's like, no, we're all just going to eventually die. Like this is like an event horizon. We're not coming back from this, but it's like, yeah, let's enjoy our lives now while we can. Fuck, capitalism, all the bullshit that went along with it.
Yeah. And they get into cool fights too. It's weird. There's a little bit of everything in this wacky series. It's a bit like that. Oh god, I've completely blanked on the name of the of that one video game franchise where there's like the mall full of zombies that you fight through kind of thing.
No.
Is it Dead Rising?
It might be Dead Rising, or that might be the Island one.
But it's something like that, where there's action, there's a bit of silliness, and there's a lot of zombies.
It is Dead Rising. You had it right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now what the Island one is. I'm like, Dead Island? Is that it? Yeah, good stuff. The audience, by the way, picked Catch These Hands, Catch Me Outside is what I was about to call it. Catch These Hands and Sandland tied for third best. Hitomi-chan is Shy with Strangers was second with our audience, and then Blue Box was the favorite.
Yeah. Okay, now's the real test.
Okay, yes. So we have plenty of things to talk about here. We're going to talk about the series this year, and I'm going to have Nick try to guess where they're all at. Before we get to that, though, Ninja wanted me to mention a couple things, a couple series that were dropped from the recap, Earthshot, which we're about to read, Super Smartphone, Rory Dragon.
Super Smartphone. When that title got brought up, I was like, oh, did that get canceled? What happened to that? Like I could not remember if it had been canceled, if it was still running, what? Like it had just been so far removed from my mind.
It has been canceled in case you needed that closure. Rory Dragon, Tokyo Demon Bride Story, Ichinose Family's Deadly Sins, Ichigoki's Under Control, and Fabricant 100. Those last three are pretty familiar to us because we just read them.
Very recent. Yeah, and so outside of Earthchild and Super Smartphone, which have been canceled, and Rory Dragon, which is on a leave of absence, the rest of them are all currently still running in Shonen Jump.
Yes, and we'll see which one of those takes off. We also read a couple one-shots, Goodbye Eri, a Fujimoto one-shot, and another Fujimoto one-shot that I think you talked about. Just listen to the song. Mm-hmm. There is also a note from Ninja that there was the 1 week where I just reviewed a chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen while Nick was gone. I don't even remember what that chapter was about, but I applaud Pasquin for bringing it to the show for everybody.
I think you talked about it like instead of the Elusive Samurai or something like
probably.
that.
I was like, I don't remember all these names. I'm going to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen, a series with infinitely easier character names to remember.
Yeah, there's a panda named Panda. Come on.
Thank God. And then there are apparently 2 spin-off Naruto series that are not Boruto, a Sasuke story and a Konoha story. I know I've been hearing about the Sasuke story in which people are saying there's like actually good character development and like creates like an interesting relationship between him and Sakura. So yeah, go check those out. I know those are available, so you can read them. Yes. I think through Manga Plus or something like that.
I think they're both on Viz too.
Oh, okay. So, there you go.
Yeah.
But now for the actual discussion. So we're going to see how many Nick can get right. Not all of these are going to have exact dates. Some of these will have like differences, and we'll explain them as we get to them. But we'll start with Akane-banashi, which you don't have to guess anything with, Nick, because Akane-banashi started this year. So
yeah, it started in February. So if we go in the timeline, then in January Shinta, Akane's father, must have been preparing for that test.
Yes.
We have to assume so.
Yeah, Akane.
So there you go. 1 on the board for Nick. Put it down. Put it down now.
Oh no!
I need all the help I can get.
I think Akane-banashi has been one of the standout sort of surprises of this year. Everybody seems to really enjoy it. Everybody seems to really like Akane a lot as a character. I will say the series has started to roll a little bit more into routine as it's kind of followed into more of like a regular arc structure. But it still definitely has high points and like generally leaves you exciting off of premises that might just be a character being like, what will you do now? And that's it. Like, and you're just like, I've never been so tense.
Through the tournament that Akane won, I feel like every chapter was can't miss of Akane-banashi. There hasn't been a bad chapter since. It's just that it hasn't been quite so enthralling reliably every single week. But it's still quite good. Out of the stuff that has been added to Shonen Jump this year, it is absolutely my favorite series. In terms of stuff that we've added to the recap, maybe number 2 to Blue Box.
Oh, okay. Not the Aliens area, our next series, though.
No.
It started this year, unfortunately. Rest in peace, ended this year as well.
I could have predicted.
A revolutionary series, Nick, about what if there were alien cops and, like, yeah, sometimes they were bad at their job, and then it just kind of ends.
Yeah. I don't think... That's something like I've already kind of like let this start to slide into the sands of my forgotten memories. But I have to stress that point. They were bad at their jobs and were routinely called out on it towards the end, and then did nothing to make up for the problems that they had. I think that is worth mentioning.
The thing I'll always remember is that it looked like we were about to get a fight, but then the assassin dude from the 3rd chapter showed up, and that was just a chapter how it ended, and I was like, huh, and then the series ended like 2 chapters later. So
and Tatsumi did basically nothing of worth at all.
Yep.
Despite being allegedly the protagonist.
Allegedly. But now, Nick, you do have to guess. Nick, where was Black Clover at the start of this year?
So this is tricky primarily because Black Clover took a relatively long break in the middle of this year. I do know that the Lucifero fight happened this year. I don't know, however, if it started this year. Or if it was kind of a bit of a holdover. But I think that it's right around there because I don't think that there was any significant fighting that happened in the arc prior to the Lucifero fight. So I'm going to give a rough guess of the series. The series began 2022 with Lucifero emerging.
So you're saying it's him emerging or him starting, like starting the fight?
Started the fight with Lucifero.
Okay, yeah, you can add that one to the board. It was the start of the fight against Lucifero. There was a little bit of a conversation that went on between Sabretooth and Lucifero. And I guess primarily the way the last
chapter... Sabretooth again?
Lieb, I think.
Right.
Liebe. But the most important thing was at the end of it, like Asta got fucked, and then the rest of the captains stood up, and like it was like, we're gonna fight against you.
Oh, no wonder I don't remember that, because it involved the other captains.
Now, Blue Box is a special case, where Blue Box has been running since the start of the year, but we only added it into the recap, like, March or something like that, or like late February or something like that.
Right. I can't tell you what happened in January.
Okay. Can you
but I know for a fact that we started covering Blue Box right after Hina had confessed to Taiki.
Yes. Do you remember the other big event that happened?
Chinatsu lost her basketball game.
There you go. All right. Knock that one on the board. Ding. Nick's crushing
So
it.
that one I actually feel a bit proud of, like to know I actually remember that one. And there got me a bunch of like, oh fuck, I don't.
Yeah. We'll wait till we get to One Piece. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
Now this is well, actually, we should talk about Blue Box, I guess, in a little bit more of a detail. Where Blue Box was good. We should have talked about Black Clover a little bit more as well, but maybe we can go back.
Black Clover this year, I don't think it would be fair for me to have any complaints about. Yeah, I have liked it probably more than in any previous year we've talked about it.
Yeah.
There was, the conclusion to the entire Spade Kingdom stuff, which had its ups and downs. But this year, the fight with Lucifero, I mean, it was long, but it wasn't too long. Like I've read a year-long battle against Just Aizen. That's a long fight against a final boss. And this one was just kind of like, suitably long, where it felt like a big deal and stuff. And it had a kind of satisfying conclusion. I wasn't nearly as hyped about it as some people were. And then we got this new arc, which I have liked more than any other part of Black Clover. All this stuff involving Luscious.
Master Luscious, yep.
Master Luscious, which I feel like has done great things for Asta's character and has introduced us to some characters that I actually do kind of like.
Yeah, I think the series did hit a stride definitely during the Spade Kingdom arc where we got like those second fights and everything like that. Really, you know what? I could credit a lot to Magma and that fight against Dante. You lifted
the ball rolling. Yeah.
I think Black Clover, it's not my favorite series to read, but it is no longer the series like I kind of dread reading or anything like that. I'm like, yeah, let's read this. Let's have fun, Find a wacky name for this character. And then Blue Box, as I mentioned before, has just been like a genuinely sweet series to read. It gets like kind of ups and downs where like some weeks there's not a ton to say and in other weeks you're just like, oh my god, what do you think Ayame is gonna do, like stuff like that.
It's been great to add a nice soap opera to our repertoire, but at least it's a good soap opera.
Indeed. Now if you want to talk about bad soap opera, let's talk about Boruto Naruto Next Generations. Nick, where was that at the beginning of this year?
Okay, so this is tricky. So this is going to be a really weird way for me to kind of try and pinpoint it. So when you were code for Halloween 2022, if I remember,
2021.
There was 2021. Sorry, that was in the midst of the fight between Code, Naruto, Kawaki, Boruto, and Sasuke.
Oh, was Sasuke there? I don't even remember anymore.
Maybe he wasn't.
It was. I know Shikamaru was there.
Shikamaru was there, just being like,
I'm worthless.
I think this was the first chapter of 2022 was the one where Boruto died.
Nick, but he's the main character. They can't kill him.
They can't kill Boruto. How can you do that? And then, of course, the next month is he's fine because it's bullshit.
Yeah. You were right on the money with that one as well. Boruto died at the end of that chapter, quote unquote. Code was holding Shikamaru hostage, and it was maybe not everyone's favorite, but Code, everyone kind of loves Boruto. Look. Boruto is like our hate baby. We enjoy dunking on it and like having fun with it. It is not a good series though, and it has been particularly bad this year.
See, this is the thing: is I need to have nothing on the line for me to actually do well at these games.
Oh yeah, because like you look at Boruto, you're like, there was that big fight. Then they were in like the room talking with Shikamaru and Delta for a little bit.
And then they went. Then Code escaped, and he got his limiters removed because they had captured Amato. He got his shit pushed in by Damon.
Yeah, and then we've just been in the house for the rest of the year. So
pretty much,
it's not been like a thrilling year for Boruto, but
no, not at all. It's been fun to dunk on. Yes. I have to admit, it never lets us down in that regard.
Yeah. So. Chainsaw Man returned this year, Nick. You don't have to guess what that. I think we can agree that Chainsaw Man has been fun. It's you get chapters where you're like, I'm emotionally devastated by this, and then chapters where you're like, oh, that was silly fun.
Yeah. It's been great to have Asa in there, and I feel like it's been nice to have a different protagonist than Denji, because then if you're not following Denji, you get the same kind of dynamic, but with a different flavor when you have Asa going around doing stuff, where she's got that same, like, a sort of incompetence to her, so that silly stuff can happen, but it's different. So it's been a nice, not change of pace, but tweaking of the formula.
Yeah, and I am willing to let myself be endlessly let down as I build myself up to like Denji and Asa more and more as a group before the inevitable pain that will follow.
Oh, it's going to be so horrible. Yeah.
Cipher Academy, Nick, just started last month or 2 months ago.
Morg.
So
Morg.
I concur. That's the series. It's been getting better, so we'll see.
It has. It's really weird. It's like, oh, it's a little bit better now.
Nick, where was Doron Dororon at the start of this year? Our favorite series.
So normally I would say, this is unfair bullshit. How can you expect me to remember anything about this? However, I do at least remember that there was barely Doron Dororon in 2021. Like, we must have had like 4 or 5 chapters before the year changed over. So I can at least say it must have been towards the beginning of all the stupid nonsense. And so the one plot relevant thing that I can remember happening is Ginchio kind of recruiting them. And I don't know how to define what their relationship was, but it was kind of like she said that they would work under her. It is around that area.
I think I can give it to you. It was sort of like the training arc that she took them on. Training arc.
Okay.
It was a single chapter, and then they dealt with.
I don't remember them. I don't remember any training they did. Like,
I will give it to you because you almost accurately called it exactly. It was chapter 5 was the start of 2022. So
sweet.
We loved Doron. It was excellent. The Dosen saga will live with us forever. But
it is astonishing to me
although Ninja
is the most memorable thing.
Ninja has said no and has taken the point from you.
Well, I guess then fine.
Ninja's like, fuck you.
I'm sorry that I can't remember the chapter title.
It was probably like number 55555 or some shit like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Important thing. Nick, where was Dr. Stone at the start of this last year?
It's really weird. Like, it feels like Dr. Stone's been over for longer than this.
I forgot Dr. Stone was last year. I was like, no, it must have been like 2021 or something like that. It feels like it's been done for a really long time.
So, I mean, obviously, if it ended in March, then they must have been at some point in the final story arc. Because that was a sizable stretch. The thing is, like, had they gotten to space yet? I'm gonna say that, fuck it. I'm gonna say that, like, the first chapter of 2022 was them taking off to go to the moon.
Yeah, more or less it was. It was them, like, completing the first rocket, showing its launch, and then them essentially going up into space. And there's the moment where Senku gets, like, brought out first. And he gets to see space alone for a moment. Like, Zeno was like, I did it so you'd have this moment to yourself in, like, reverence to my friendship with your father.
Oh. I forgot about that moment.
I forgot about everything in Dr. Stone. Like, I remembered, I was like, oh, yeah, Wyman was, like, a bunch of robots from space.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, in general, I'm like, yeah, I forgot Dr. Stone was this year.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that Ryusui was not supposed to come on the mission, and then he came anyway, basically.
He
So
spun around. It was very silly. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about Doctor Stone. Like, I've forgotten so much of the end of it. I don't really know how to encapsulate it as a series at this point. Ninja gave you a half point, so there
It's
you
a
go.
harsh instructor.
Ninja will give no shits about your close guesses. Half point. You're narrowly off. Eden Zero, Nick. Where was Eden Zero at the start of this year? And with Hero's pace,
Where wasn't it? So Bomb Up the Rectum did not happen this year. Like that's
did it?
I don't think it did, because it didn't show up in the what the fuck moment poll.
Okay.
Like that would have, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably won previous years. So it must have been either after that, within the arc, or even past the arc entirely, which makes me think that, okay, so the time skip, I think, happened this year. Before we had another time skip.
Yeah.
You know, with the parallel
universe.
Well,
yeah, it's a different universe. Who knows where it is really anymore?
Right.
I guess they un-time skipped themselves. Or re-time skipped it, I don't know.
You know what? That's as good a landmark for me as any. I'm going to say that the time skip happened in that chapter.
No, this was after the time skip.
Okay.
This was that weird chapter where they're like, we have to team up with Elsie. We have to go back to the guild. And then they get back to the guild, and then they're surrounded. And they're like, time to battle our way back to our ship. And it didn't really amount to anything. And then this is like in a lead up to them. They hadn't yet gone, like they just got Connor. They hadn't yet gone to like the little fucking resort planet or whatever.
Where they meet Holy.
Feather. Right. This is where the resort is where they met Holy. Feather is the one who encounters them on that planet because she can see everything, Nick. And she knows they're right. They all have to fight their way out, but like it's like one chapter of everybody being like, boom.
So they had met Holy and were going around with her before?
No, this as I said, they hadn't yet gotten to, like, after this they go to the resort planet, and that's where they meet Holy.
Okay.
They were always
I was gonna say is like they spent a whole year with Holy. That doesn't sound right.
They spent most of it because I think that's only like 2 or 3 chapters later as well. Well, I guess it's like 4 or 5 chapters where they finally actually like get her to work with them. Mm-hmm. But she's actually secretly working against them, and her plan was just to seduce Siki and then I guess melt his dick off, which, you know, that's a strategy. Some people.
What a weird reveal that was.
Eden Zero was awful this year. There was just an inordinate number of bad twists. The entire Lendard arc was excessively full of just twists and turns. So much so they constantly overwrit themselves. Like, you'd forget what the big twists were by the end because you were like, 7 other gigantic things have supposedly happened.
Pretty much.
And then you got to the end where you're like, I didn't give a shit about any of this. Like, all this sucked. So, you know, and now we time skipped backwards. I believe there is news out that Hero is going to start work on a monthly series. So maybe Eden Zero will be wrapping up soon and he'll be on a different pace or something like that.
All right.
Yeah. So, Nick, Kaiju number 8. Where was that?
This one is hard. I don't know. Like, I've got like no landmark for this one. It's really weird. Like, I've just got no sense of the time scale of what has happened in this series. I know obviously certain things that happened, like you know, I mean, obviously the big thing has been Kaiju number 10 and Hoshina in terms of what we have enjoyed about this series. But God, like, all the stuff with Ichikawa also happened this year. Kikoru got her suit upgrade thing too. But those all, I feel like, happened midway through the year or after. So in terms of like the months prior to that, I don't know. Was there was this during the fight where like number 10 and all the flyers were attacking the base? Was that still going on, or were we past that point? I think that's where I'm going to guess.
No, we were far past that point.
Exactly. Like I fully admit, like I
Yeah.
just do
Oh,
not have a time scale sense of this.
again, if I were you, I would have zero idea as well. No, they actually were past the mission after that. The start of this year started with the funeral for Asao, essentially. Like Nine had come back, taken
See,
over his body.
I thought he had died. I thought he had died this year. Like,
Yeah, no, he apparently died very late last year, and then started this year was his funeral. Well, I guess not died, taken over. I don't know. Maybe there's a part of it. Still
right? He
after.
technically died this year,
Yeah.
I guess, based on what we saw. But yeah,
I think Kaiju number 8 has been not amazing this year. Not like at that same quality at the start where like every chapter Kaiju number 8 is like a fucking awesome series, but like really good at certain points. Like really great character moments for like Reno, Hoshina. Finally, maybe starting to get Asano involved or Ashino. Ashino. I always forget which one's the fucking My Hero girl and then which one's the one from Kaiju. Anyway, childhood friend captain. Like it sounds like these characters are all getting, Kikoru, like they're getting some level of like character development, which is pretty good.
yeah, it has been up and down certainly this year. But I think that where it has shined has been in terms of elevating some of those side characters a bit, while Kafka has kind of not really faded into the background, but kind of just taken a little bit of a back seat while he kind of like gets his shit sorted out.
Yeah. An important question on Nick: where was Magu-chan God of Destruction this year? At the start of last year.
So I remember us having a conversation while this was going on. Is this series going to end soon? Because either I was in denial or we just weren't really sure. Because it was seeming to take story beats that indicated that it was going to end, which would mean that we would have, because the series ended in February, Magu-chan's story arcs tended to be short. We probably had like just started that final arc with Yuppie Susu, where Ruru was, like trying to figure out what she wanted to do with her life once she kind of started to grow up and stuff.
Yeah, essentially that's kind of where we were at. It was the time loop that everybody kind of got stuck in. The gods realized that something was up, and then it's revealed that the second pillar is the one causing it to happen. So there you go. Ninja gave you a full point. See? The gods are kind.
Yeah. Well, I got it even though I couldn't remember what happened on panel 4 of page 3. Come on.
And our beloved son was there. So
yeah, he was.
I love him. Magu-chan.
And he got his restaurant in the end.
He did. I love that. Magu-chan was excellent. It was a fantastic series that I will treasure forever.
Had a very emotional send-off. It was a very nice conclusion to the series. And then we got to have a little bonus thing with it, which, I feel like ship teased Ren and Ruru the right amount, whereas like you still don't know if they're together or not. And that's kind of how I feel like it should always be. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, never find out if they get together because that's not the point.
And then Nick, where was Mashle Magic and Muscles at the start of last year? This one did surprise me.
Yeah. Was this? Oh, God. So, I'm trying to remember. Was this like, I guess, like after the tournament had fallen apart and like, what was his name? Now I've forgotten the main villain's name. He hasn't been around for a while.
Levis?
No, Zero.
Oh, Innocent Zero?
Innocent Zero, yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think that that this would have been past the point he had like interrupted the tournament and broken it up. And there was the fight in that regard, I think. Because I don't think the actual tournament fighting happened this year. Although, God, with Mashle's pacing, I don't know. So I think that... Now I'm trying to remember all the shit that happened there. Yeah, no. It's after that because the weird baby wizard person who showed up, that wasn't this year. That was the year before.
Babysitter?
So...
Or Sitter Baby?
Sitter Baby, yeah. That wasn't this past year. That was the year before. So that must have been... So it had to be after the tournament got interrupted. What has happened in between then and now? Jesus. There's been so much shit. Because there's just been so much fighting. Like...
Yeah, Ninja already like adding the 4.5 out of 8 score.
0.141596723. Oh. I need to answer. I'm going to guess that it is when God, I've forgotten so many names in this goddamn series. What was the name of the water guy?
Levis.
That was Levis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that it was... Oh, wait. When he, like, revealed his thirds.
I guess, technically...
was his thirds already around when the year started? Or...
No, well, it was sort of like the end of that fight. Which is where the year end, and that's when Levis revealed he had like a third line of like more power. So it's not exactly, because I think he did reveal his thirds before that, but this was like the end of that fight, had like a little backstory, and then Mash wins essentially, and then after that is when Innocent Zero shows up and everything like that.
Okay, so it was the end of that fight, and then... Okay, so Innocent Zero does show up.
Yeah, right. You were thinking when you thought Innocent Zero showing up, you were thinking of the previous
other time.
The other tournament where he showed up.
No marks for that one.
No, Ninja gave you none. Ninja said, fuck you.
How dare you get the wrong phase of the fight,
Oh, wait. Levis is the magnetism guy. Someone... All right, then I don't know where... Because I was like...
I said the water guy.
Yeah, well...
I'll have you know.
You're still wrong, because this is the end of the Levis fight.
Okay, well, okay, in that case, fine.
Well, then... All right, it just says the end of Mash versus Levis, so I think Ninja may have to deduct a point from themselves for putting Levis' face there, then. Wait, Mash was fighting the magnetism guy?
Yeah, that because he did like...
Oh, so we hadn't even gotten to the water guy then. Never mind. Take a point from me then.
Okay,
Ninja gets
fine.
a point. Nick gets 0 points.
No wonder I can't remember this stuff. Mash fights too many people.
I don't remember. Yeah, Mash had a lot of stuff go on this year, and a lot of it was generally very good. We got some pretty cool stuff at the start of the year. I thought that arc ended well as like a dramatic way to build up like Mash's first sibling, and then we fought the rest of them, and the rest of them were like kind of cool. Like I think like some of them were a little bit more memorable than others. Like Famine is a fight that'll kind of go down as being like the whatever one, because you were like, I don't know, it was Famine against racist Harry Potter. Like everything didn't have a dog in that fight. More racist Harry Potter, more overtly racist Harry Potter. But I think there were some pretty good stuff in the series. It did just... We have gone through like a month and a half straight of people fighting Doom.
Yes.
Maybe even longer than that, to be honest. Because I think every person who showed up basically to like enter... Like, it was first Doom and... I forget who made it through first. Was it the Rain siblings or something like that? And then it was like Harry Potter guy showed up, and then it was like Ryu Grant showed up, and or no, I think it was Finn or Gravity guy whose name I'm forgetting, Lance. They showed up first, then like Finn and Rain, then Order, and I don't think each of them got their own chapters, but I know like Ryu Grant's was like 3 chapters in and of themselves, and then we've had already 2 straight chapters of just Mash fighting the Doom, so it's been a bit.
Yep.
My Hero, Nick. Where was My Hero at the start of this year?
So here's the thing. I don't remember what happened. But what I can tell you is that when we were talking about this at the beginning of the year, I specifically went, there is no way I'm going to remember what happened.
I'm reading this description, and I feel like you could just take the L on this, because I don't even know how you would define this as a moment.
I can tell you roughly where in the story it does happen, but I can also tell you that what happens in the chapter doesn't really have anything to do with what's going on in the main storyline, because it's kind of in a down period after we've had like the reveal of Aoyama and stuff, and before Deku decides to not take a bath for a long time and go out on his own and be grimdark.
You said it was before that? Stinky Deku stuff was before the Aoyama thing.
Was it?
Yes.
What the hell happened after it? Was it literally just they did the plan to get it? It was. God, Stinky Deku is way too
it's way too iconic.
I can't see. It's some of the best stuff that happened, I guess, in the past 2 years of My Hero Academia. God. Yeah, I just remember that it was after they had discovered all the stuff with Aoyama, and before they started enacting their big plans of stuff, that there was some unimportant stuff that happened.
Ninja is throwing you a lifeline. Which UA student has focus in the chapter?
I'm not going to know that.
Okay, well, it's easier. I'm going to tell you right now, it is easier to guess that than it is to try to guess what happened in this chapter. Just name a student.
Replica Rabbit said boobs. Which, if we're talking about thirst traps in My Hero Academia, that's probably Hatsume.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you are correct. It is a chapter about Hatsume.
I don't remember what her involvement in the chapter is. I just I can't tell you that.
Okay, well, I'll leave it to Ninja to decide how he wants to grade that one. You are correct though. It was basically like Deku and Ida went to her to try to get them to repair their shit, and then like I believe they had like
Ida went to go talk about stuff. Yeah.
So you get something from that. Ninja gave you a full point. So.
Because I guess when prompted,
full point. I mean, you admitted you looked into chat and saw like extra context clues, but yeah, you did. I didn't know where we were at the start of the year, and I have trouble telling you. Like, I know we've been in this big war arc, and then I also had to sit there and I'm like,
I know.
Was Stars and Stripes this year? Was that last year?
Oh, is that the thing that happened this year? Did that happen this year?
I know that happened shortly before the big war arc really started, but I'm like, was it that recent or was it last year?
No, I think. God, I'm not even gonna bother trying to guess. Yeah.
Okay. So
I can't make sense of this timeline.
Last year,
it's like it's just been a bunch of fighting.
How have you enjoyed this the past year, My Hero, Nick?
I've liked bits and pieces. It's been really rough as someone who has gotten so invested in the story to see a lot of the choices that have been made. Like a lot of big moments that the series attempted to have this year really didn't leave a good taste. Like all the stuff involving Spinner, like it just felt kind of not great. The stuff where like Dabi was down because of Shoto's cool new move, and then he wasn't, and this one of the main villains in the series just like was doing nothing for a while until she got teleported to be next to everyone. So it's like, well, what happened in her fight? Nothing. Just a lot of choices that I'm not really happy with. And at least we got a cool Jiro moment.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll always have that.
Nick, I think this one may have you even beat in regards to My Hero. Where was One Piece at the start of this year? Now, One Piece at the start of... Here's the thing. One Piece at the start of last year was like the easy one. It was chapter 1000.
It shouldn't have been easy. It should have been a slam dunk. And I completely biffed it.
Here's the thing. So Ninja has sent me the description of what happens in the chapter. There's like 7 bullet points, and none of them have anything to do with each other. So
yeah, because it was a Wano chapter.
So I look, Ninja can gauge how Ninja would like to, but I would say there was a major fight going on that was not Raizu versus Earlobe Guy. If you could tell me which fight was going on this year at the start of this year, I will give you some credit. Well, fuck, because even in the same
in terms
thing,
of what got focus in the chapter.
Well, because I can't even say that because there are 2 big fights happening at the same time that get focused on.
I get the sense that some stuff happened involving like Big Mom and Law and Kid, but I don't remember what phase of the fight it was. And then like there's all the, kind of like slightly less important fights that involve the Straw Hats, and I don't know what order they played out in. I'll
say this. Okay, how about this? A fight is declared over in this chapter.
Was it Sanji versus Queen?
It was not. It was King and Zolo's fight ended.
I thought that happened a little bit later, so I wouldn't have gotten
Well, you have to remember the hierarchy of the Straw Hats, Nick. Sanji, then Zoro, then was the Big Mom, because that's a fight even above that. And then finally we got...
Right, so my time scale was placing things a little bit too early here.
Yeah, it also has Yamato breaks through the armory doors. Usopp berates Kinemon and Kiku for the samurai suicidal tendencies. Izo lets them escape. Raiju's fight, Raizo's fight is still going on. Appu does a thing, and then Luffy and Kaido are still fighting each other.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo, that'd be pretty crazy. Yes, I think I unfortunately did say Zolo once accidentally.
Join the dark side, Luffy. Luffy, we are connected.
Luffy, I'm going to take my shirt off. Join the dark side.
Aren't you cold?
No, look how fucking stacked I am. I'm fine. One Piece, I think, was overall good this year. It was a lot, but this was like... How do I describe it that I don't just rely on a cum joke? This was... Fuck it. This was like the tantric sex is finally over and you got to come. You were like, this is... very satisfying. I wish it hadn't taken 4 years. I feel like that was edging us for too long. We got some very cool moments. Gear 5. Great stuff. But next time, please, a little sooner.
No notes, no comments. What you said.
Thank you. All right, let's move on, Nick, to PPPPPPP, and it wouldn't be PPPPPP if I didn't have a wrestler for you to guess.
Oh, God damn it. You caught me off guard with this one.
I caught you off guard, but you have a minute to guess a wrestler, Nick. I think.
Okay, let me get my stopwatch ready.
All right, you ready?
I haven't reset from last week. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, and go.
All right, are they active?
No.
Okay, are they alive?
Yes.
Are they a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
In WWE? Okay. Are they retired or are they just inactive?
Retired, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Did they retire in the last 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. Have they won a world championship in WWE?
Yes.
Okay. Was it specifically the WWE championship?
Yes.
Okay. Are they like a multi-time world champion?
Yes.
Okay. Were they active during the Attitude Era?
No.
No. Did they start wrestling after 2005?
Yes, I believe so, but I'll double check real quick.
Probably. Okay, but they were world
No,
champion.
before 2005.
Okay, was it after 2000 period?
Yes.
Okay, they started after 2000. They were WWE champion. Okay. Can't be. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm trying to think of actually retired people who started after that point. Because if they're actually retired, then it can't be like Punk. Who the fuck is? One is. I'm trying as hard, as fast as I can to like go through the entire lineage in my brain.
It'll be curious to see the numbers after this. Like, does Nick get more right, or like, how does the winning this game or not decide his focus for the rest of this?
Yeah, this is going to torment me. I don't like the answer I'm going to give, but I feel like if I just like sit here and go through it, then it's not in the spirit of the game. So I'm gonna guess fucking Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio.
It is not Del Rio. I will say this. Let me pull back. I'm not 100% positive he's in the Hall of Fame. So if we take that out, does that change?
Oh, you don't know if they're in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not. I thought they were, but I'm not. Now I'm not seeing it listed on their accomplishments, so maybe they weren't.
So I think would be right, and Del Rio wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, so that completely. Oh, is it Batista?
It is Batista.
For
some reason, I was like, wasn't Evolution added to the Hall of Fame? As like a unit?
Batista he officially retired like a couple years ago. No, I don't think Evolution's in the Hall of Fame. No.
Okay. For some reason, I thought all three of them, or all four of them, had been added in as a group.
No. That'd just be like another reason for Triple H and Ric Flair to get to be like, I'm here again.
No, he was. He is in the Hall of Fame.
Batista, I think, was individually put.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, Batista.
For some reason, I was like going in my head, and there was just like this big jump that I was doing from like 2004 to 2010. It's like nothing happened there.
I would like if Ninja gives you a half point because he's like, well, you guessed Del Rio first, and he wasn't even in the Hall of Fame. So.
Yeah, suddenly Ninja's big.
But now, with that momentum, Nick, can you tell me where PPPPP was at the start? Well, this is another one where it came into the magazine after. There were chapters running before we added it to the recap.
Right.
But like one.
So not a lot. So we had completely skipped over, or I had completely skipped over all the Reijiro stuff. So if you want me to guess what happened in January, something in there. But in terms of when we started, it was like right basically at the start of the Mimin arc, I think. I don't know how that chapter like kicks off, but I believe it's right at the start of that saga where it's leading up to the competition involving her and Maloli, and Furusu was still playing piano at that point.
Yeah, I'm gonna rely on Ninja to decide on that one. I don't think it's exactly where it is. I think Mimin's full introduction was a little bit earlier. He gave you full point, so I guess you got it exactly on the head. It was sort of like the start of that, but it sounds like, I guess in the same chapter as Mimin is with the rest of the family, she then at the end of the chapter meets up with Lucky. For some reason, I thought there'd be like a break of a chapter before they do that, because that just seems like how you would have to structure it. But
keeping firm time structures in a series as weird and trippy as PPPPPP is already challenging enough. Yeah. So
that is true. So how have you felt about PPPPPP this year?
Pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
I thought it was going to just be kind of weird garbage, and instead it has been occasionally garbage, but mostly just like different from anything else that we read consistently, and in a good way, because where it's just like a lot of imagery that kind of overwhelms you, while a lot of really, really hard and depressing themes get explored with very little dialogue, or at least very little direct dialogue usually.
I would say PPPPP has been good. It is a very weird series. It has one of the more sort of adult and complex character development of any series I think we've really read. Probably anything that's like a shonen series, where you really just kind of have to sit and dwell on some characters and their actions and the speeches they give and the symbolism. It's good. It's an odd series to sometimes recap. I don't know if we're far from the days where you and I just joke about the one dude having like a 3-step plan where step 1 and 2 were part of the same step. But there's still good stuff as well. It's just maybe not as riffable as it used to be, because it's sort of just like, Nick, you want to riff on this kid who's talking about how existentialism is ruining his life, but he's found meaning in his own death.
I don't know. At one point in our lives, we were able to riff on Grave of the Fireflies. But
that was the joke, is that we were doing a movie commentary of Grave of the Fireflies during Comedy Month, and we just used it to talk about like N64
anything
games.
else.
We're going to speed this up a little bit. Spy Family, Nick. Where was Spy Family at the start of last year?
I'm drawing a blank on this one. I kind of have a hard time keeping track of what order things happen in Spy Family, because its structure tends to be very episodic and kind of loose. So I don't know. If I had to hazard a goddamn guess, I would have to say that maybe we were at some point in the cruise, where we got a bunch of your focus, but where in that we were, I don't know. So that's probably too vague to get really any sensible credit for.
It's
because that was a fairly sizable arc.
It is fine. You were in the wrong arc completely. We were in the arc where Lloyd and Bond are like going on a walk, and Bond just keeps seeing like the building on fire and everything like that, and is like, I gotta go save everybody. And Lloyd's like, what the fuck?
Oh, good for Bond.
Yeah, it was a good time. It ended up very happy.
Okay.
Spy Family's been good this year.
Yeah.
But it as you mentioned, there's a lot of like stuff going on all over the place, and it's hard to like remember, because I'm like, was the cruise this year? Was that last year? It's tough for me to like place where things are in Spy Family a lot of times, except for what I'm currently in.
Yep. I will say a lot of Spy Family reading now gives me the bonus of I can't wait to see this in the anime, because the anime is really damn good.
Excellent.
And I highly recommend it.
Glad to hear it. Elusive Samurai, Nick, where was that at the start of this year or last year?
So they infiltrated Kyo this year. I know that. What happened before that? That is the question. And how long before that are we talking? So, look, I don't really know this. I'm going to just say, even if this is wrong, that this is going to be when we were introduced to Tokiyuki's cowardly uncle whose intentions appear on his forehead. I don't know.
No, the main thing was the shitty little kid that Tokiyuki had to like
oh right, that guy
deal with for a little bit and did like a game of it. So that's where it's been. Elusive Samurai has had a strange year where I feel like a lot of it has been forgettable or just kind of like exhausting. There are like good bits here and there. And I think it got a little bit better towards the end of the year when it started giving more focus on like the side cast and like having one-on-one fights and like doing stuff like that to like kind of like kept things like intriguing and moving forward. But I don't know if this hasn't been, I think, the best year for Elusive Samurai, which is a weird thing to say. It's only 2 years old.
It's its second year. Yeah. Yeah, it's had its moments, but I definitely like the series more when the stakes felt lower. That's because I don't really care much for all these big battle scenes we keep getting. You know, having them occasionally, and especially when they kind of like broke down to more individual fights was fine. But I liked a lot more of there being like an elusive samurai. You know, there was more running away stuff, and having direct confrontations kind of waters down that thing that kind of sets it apart. it makes it kind of like lose its identity, I feel like.
Yes.
Also, a lot of the side characters haven't gotten to do anything recently.
Well, not recently. Recently they have. We've gotten like little arcs for Kojiro, I guess Ayako and the Priestess girl.
Ayako, Shizuku have like done nothing this year. It feels like. Well, Ayako powerbombed that guy off his horse.
That is true.
You can't forget that.
All right, Nick, this is an important thing. If you need to get this right to stay at least at 50%. If you get more than that, then you'd have a winning record. You're at 7-14 right now with 2 series left. So Undead Unluck, Nick, where was Undead Unluck this year?
So this would be very, very difficult because I have hard time keeping track of Undead Unluck's pacing. But fortunately, there was an actually noteworthy thing that happened at the start of last year, which was the end of the fight contest with Spring, which made everyone all sad and stuff.
Yeah, I'll give it to you for that. That's pretty much where it is. Andy is like, hey, everybody, let's have a cherry blossom festival as we all turn into fucking trees and shit like that. Fuko and Spring finish their game. Spring loses, starts to fade away, apologizes to Ishin. Ishin's like, no, our family has always respected Spring. We've always kept that character and our true name. And then Spring gives a recital as it fades away. And I was reading that before we get to it, and I had to hide that I was getting a little emotional. And I was like, I love this moment. It is not a secret.
Yo, what if one of the things that Fuko sets right is Spring getting to hang out with everyone?
I want it to be. I want to be like how Chainsaw Man deals with like devils or like fiends and like devil hunters, where like sometimes they just date. And like we just see Spring dating somebody and like happy, and you're just like, thank God.
Actually, now that I've mentioned that, it feels like it kind of has to happen, like because
probably to some extent.
Fuko's been trying to like get everyone to have their happy ending and stuff, and Fuko knows that Spring just wanted to like make goddamn friends, and Spring couldn't have friends, so.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret to anyone. Undead Unluck has been phenomenal this year to me. I've loved it so much. And particularly like the last half of the year has been like banger after banger after banger from this series.
After banger.
And the start of this year was great too. Like, we'll get into it later, but like Undead Unluck was really, really good this year.
Yes.
Nick, can you get a winning record if you could tell me where World Trigger was at the start of this year? And you can't just say the second exam.
Oh, dang, I thought this was going to be a gimme. I'm going to just, this is also really hard because there were so many months where we didn't have World Trigger, unfortunately. I can only speculate on this in terms of being specific and say that maybe this was during the period where Katori was depressed and upset because of how the games were going.
Okay.
And she needed to be motivated with the promise of Scruffy Hottie.
No, you lost. That was like 3 or 4 chapters ago. It was like
yeah, but that could have been January.
You're not wrong. That was basically where we were at the start of the year was like they got handed the second special assignment that they had to do, and oh no, like what's gonna happen?
What was the second special assignment? Like, come on.
It was
losing my mind with this pacing.
Good. We're going to get 2 chapters soon, so that's going to be
Hold on a second. I want to point out there was no January chapter of World Trigger.
The first chapter of the year, sorry. Chapter, yeah. You got 50%. That's the important thing. And Ninja hasn't even put his number in yet, so you maybe give me like a half point or something. Like, I don't know why he wouldn't get it.
Just to tip me over into the upper half.
Here's the thing, Lance Storm would make a thing out of predicting WrestleManias, and 50% was the highest he ever hit. So that's pretty good.
That's predicting WrestleManias? Does he not know anything about storytelling? Like, come on. Like,
Well, yeah,
I feel like
that he did it in the age where there'd be like fucking three four-way tag team title matches. And you're like, I have no idea. Like that shit throws you off. Is this even a match? What's going on? You know? All right.
Fair enough.
With that, we need to move on, and then we're also going to wrap up soon. But I say wrap up. This could go on for 30 minutes. We're going to do the Superlative Awards, Nick. This is where we go and discuss the best of the best from this year. All the cool stuff, all the best moments right here, starting with Best Hero. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, how are these things determined? You've missed your opportunity to have a say in it, but every year, throughout the year, Ninja X3i and the members of our Discord keep track by nominating people and moments as they happen, and then towards the end of the year, Ninja runs a series of runoff polls, gets everybody's opinions, adds it in, puts it in the list. There's 8 people selected, and then you and I have the ability to go beyond that and choose like a wild card as like our option essentially. So, for example, the first category is the best hero of the year. And the nominees, this is where I feel like I wish I had like my sequins on, you know, like I want to like have like a little the nominees. Yeah, the nominees for best hero are Ruru from Magu-chan, God of Destruction. That's going to take too long. Akane from Akane-banashi, Luffy from One Piece, Asa from Chainsaw Man, Fuko from Undead Unluck, Lucky from PPPPPP, Taiki from Blue Box, and Luna from Ginka Glüna.
There are some good choices in there. It's got to be Fuko.
It's got to be
Fuko. It can't not be Fuko after this year.
It is wild to me because she was absent for half this year. She was dead. She was a ghost.
She was dead. She was gone.
She was a fucking ghost, and then her soul got captured. And yet still, she's far and away just the most entertaining and engaging character this year. She's been so fucking cool to follow.
Yeah, and I guess even while she was dead, you know, there was like, she was a big part of the series still, in terms of, what.
Kirby brought up a great point. Ginka and Luna got skipped in our recap. That means Ninja forgot Ginka and Luna. Hold on, I have to check real quick to make sure I didn't forget it. No, Ninja forgot it. Just like they forgot Magu-chan all those years ago. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, to break the tie, what was happening in the first chapter of Ginka and Luna. There was a little girl in the snow, and she wanted to know magic.
You got it, Nick. And Nick gets over 50%.
What's that? No complaints? No complaints. All right, done. I win.
The audience, by the way, picked Fuko as their character, so everybody agreed. I think everybody really loved Fuko. I'd have to at some point go back and actually check. I don't know if Ninja actually keeps the statistics of it, but I feel like Fuko has to be at least my most like nominated character of the week.
Oh yeah,
because I picked her so freaking frequently.
Absolutely.
Best new character, Nick. We have Mamind from PPPPP, Akane from Akane-banashi, Ayame from Blue Box, Yoru, aka the War Devil from Chainsaw Man, Isao Arakawa from Akane-banashi, Sora-chika from PPPPP, Karen from Blue Box, and Achika from Black Clover.
That's crazy to think if Karen got introduced this year. Mine is like, look, these are all good choices for different reasons. I would have to say that kind of glaring by her absence, despite the inclusion of Yoru, is Asa. I think that I would have to put that down as my wild card and say like she definitely deserves to be on there.
Yeah, not even nominated, by the way, because like we could see everything that got like nominated didn't get picked. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I have to say it would have to be that she should at least be mentioned. My favorite new character is Akane, though. I think that Akane-banashi is a fantastic series, and she is a big part of it. And she takes such a prominent role in the series because like almost everything is through her point of view, and she's a great character to follow.
Yes, I will take your wild card though, and I'm going to say Asa. I think Akane has been fantastic, but I really, really have come to like Asa. It is a weird moment to be like, hey, this is the second part of a highly beloved series, and it's like brand new character, brand new environment, brand new dynamic, and to make her just like to not constantly like I know we did at the start to be like, where's Chainsaw Man? But like now I'm just as eager to read about Asa as I am to read about Denji himself. So
Yeah.
a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, I feel like she is, as important as Denji is to the overall story where it is right now. Not just because she's the focus right now, but it feels like going forward, she could be just as big a focus of the series. She feels like a strong enough character that can do that. And right now, I'm definitely more invested in what happens with her than I am with Denji. Because Denji, we know, is just kind of like gonna be okay no matter what because he's made of chainsaws and can destroy anything that comes across him. Asa, it feels like, anything could happen with her. She could lose stuff that's important to her. She might get killed by Denji later on. And there's a lot of stuff that could happen to her, and I'm very invested in what happens.
Yeah, and I think she's had some pretty good like evolution of her character from like when she's first introduced. Also, like a female character where like her being clumsy is not meant to be like a cute character trait. Like everyone,
No,
she's very clear. She's like so many.
It's a source of misery.
So much trauma has happened to me because I keep slipping at these moments.
Yeah.
Best new technique or power. I'm gonna list these all off, but there is one correct answer, obviously. Mash's full muscle magic. Unlimited physical mode, Mash, unlimited biceps magic, punch squared, Andy's dead quartet, there is Luffy's gear 5, elusive strategy, flaming holy pillar, aka when Tokiyuki and his army ride flaming logs down a hill, Yoru / the War Devil's ability to turn people and objects into weapons, Hoshina's number 10 suit, complete with the attitude and tail, and then Fuko's basically like misfortune mountain strike that she used against Fang.
Yeah, very recent entry there. I feel like if we had gotten to see more of Yoru's ability, that this might have stood a chance. Kind of has to be Gear 5.
It's got to be Gear 5. Gear 5 was
5.
absolutely incredible. It was such an awesome moment. And really, I love how it's so wacky and so iconically One Piece. It makes me feel about Luffy's transformations the way I wish I had felt against like any of Gear 4 stuff. Like I loved Gear 2 and Gear 3, and then Gear 4 was kind of just like a whatever thing. Gear 5 is so freaking cool. The audience agreed. By the way, I forgot. The audience picked Akane as their new character of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So we have best speech now. We have Ruru's speech to Yupipusu. I fucked up that name. I'm sorry. Yubi Susu?
Yes.
Okay. Big Mom's lament as she is defeated. Yamato's speech to Momonosuke about let's face the death together. This is what it means to lose a war, which is Kaido's speech after he beat Luffy. The ignorance isn't bliss. Ignorance is a weakness. Ignorance is a sin. Lloyd's lament about not knowing enough from Spy Family. Billy verbally destroying Ruin to make him hate him and thus take on Ruin from Undead Unluck.
Very cool.
Hina's eternal monologue on the roller coaster of emotions for her feelings for Taiki for Chinatsu in Blue Box, and the show's reason for expelling Shinta from Akane-banashi. There were a lot. There's so many.
There was some cool lines that got said this year. There were. I don't have any extra things to nominate for this because I'm just kind of like bad at remembering individual big cool speeches. But I definitely have a very strong attachment to the stuff that was happening towards the end of Magu-chan God of Destruction. So I'm going to say Ruru's speech to Yupi Susu, where she explains why, she needs to move on from where she currently is because she wants to live the rest of her life and do a lot of stuff.
I will give a special acknowledgement to, or I guess a wild card to Lucifero's I acknowledge you speech. Like I just really remember like the I acknowledge you. I see that you are not ants. You present some challenge. Now I will eviscerate you. It was a very cool moment.
That was very cool. Yeah.
It is not giving me my pick, but I do want to acknowledge that. I think I will agree with you and say Ruru's speech from in Magu-chan God of Destruction, which had just a phenomenal end to it.
Yeah.
The audience picked Lloyd's speech about ignorance isn't bliss. So really good ones there. Nick, biggest what the fuck moment. Maybe our favorite one of the entire year. Fuko is killed out of nowhere by a villainous new character, and she legit was killed.
She was dead.
Half the chapter was like, boom, fucking, she's dead. Shikamaru being callous and inconsistent while talking about Kawaki killing Boruto to Naruto.
That was weird. Yeah.
The new emperors of the sea after Big Mom and Kaido's defeat are Shanks, Blackbeard, Luffy, and Buggy. Code, having his limiters removed and being built up as incredibly powerful, immediately gets curse stomped by the little child gremlin Damon.
Oh, Code. That's our boy.
Ziggy's plan involves kidnapping a bunch of mothers, including the mothers of the entire Eden Zero crew, because they produce a special life energy that would let them reach Mother and kill her. From Eden Zero. Also from Eden Zero, Kira, the otherwise completely unused Interstellar member, has been behind most of the evil of the galaxy to balance out the good. Also from Eden Zero, Akanoella having all of her relevant character details revealed and then dying in a single chapter. And then finally from Eden Zero, they reveal that Captain Connor Ogly Rebecca was actually him crying a manly tear because he now knows he has a daughter.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Great picks. Great picks.
Oh, so many. This was such a wild year when you put it that way. I kind of felt like when it happened that we were going to say, oh, it's when Code got all his limiters removed and then got his ass kicked by Damon. So what was the point? However, when I was reminded of Cure and his whole big speech about how he was behind every bad thing that has happened. And it was for what? So that Holy would kill him, and that's it.
It was nice.
All these bad things were by this pointless, random villain reveal that has had no story relevance. I can't not pick that. That's the stupidest, fucking, most pointless bullshit thing.
That is a great one. I absolutely agree. However, my what the fuck moment of the year is the reveal that Ziggy has been keeping a bunch of naked moms in tubes. It's
not a sex thing.
Not a sex thing. But he's doing it because they all get energy that he needs to kill mom. A plan which is then revealed to be pointless because she's dying anyway. And we don't get to see it come to a resolution because we left that universe.
Yeah, when you put it that way, yes. The fact that since then it has been rendered more what the fucky because it's even more pointless. That's pretty great.
It's really just something you're like, why did you have a room full of naked moms?
Ziggy, all this was pointless. Mother was dying anyway. Was this actually a sex thing?
He's like, okay.
Okay.
It's actually the ship has it as a sex thing. I have to listen to the ship.
Actually kind of make it less weird.
The audience thankfully managed to finish our trifecta, but they picked Code getting his limiters removed and then immediately getting his ship pushed in, which is a very funny moment.
Oh my god. Thank you, Boruto and Eden Zero, for your insanity. Writing our lives.
Yes. All right, Nick, the best 2-page spread. Now, I could describe each like 2-page spread, but that's a little weird because then I'm just describing the art. I would say if you're really curious about all the nominees for this one, go check out Ninja's Google Doc. You can find it in our Discord. You can see all the nominations there. But we've checked out all of them. All of the people who are voted in the audience poll are able to see them. We can sort of see our favorites there. And I'll say, of all the ones we saw this year, I think my favorite is the War Devil walking away and like the explosion of guts that happens at like sort of, I think it might have just been the first chapter of Chains or
of the arc of the story. Yeah,
the new part. It's a very cool moment. It did remind me of how that was also essentially the ending of one of Fujimoto's one-shots this year as well, where it's like cool people walking away from explosions. It's basically that, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, good stuff. I am going to go with the the season's recap 2-page color spread. It's from one of the nominations. It didn't make the cut, but I'm going to choose it anyway. I think it just looks really cool, and it's very nice and colorful.
Yes. The audience, by the way, picked the 2-page spread of everyone holding back God in the last moment as Fuko teleports away in Undead Unluck, which is another amazing, amazing moment. So really cool ones there. Best twist, Nick. Now, whereas the What the Fuck award tends to go to dumb stuff, this is stuff that is supposed to be good. So these are good awards. So best twist, Juez appeals to Luna, an entity on the moon, to give up her ability to loop and send Fuko and Andy forward in time to save Fuko with the addition of Ghost.
Yep, wow. That happened.
Yep. Yupi Susu, the Eternal, has been the series narrator for the whole time via time travel.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. That makes sense.
It's detail. Y-Man's identity is the Medusas themselves, acting as a parasitic alien AI, a collective offering immortality via petrification in exchange for reproducing them. Yeah,
it kind of feels like it's actually lost a little bit of impact over time, honestly.
Yeah, it's a big reveal that's kind of the results of the Arakawa test are that everyone not only fails but are expelled from the school, including Akane's dad. And this was the first chapter of Akane-banashi.
Yeah. Chapter 1 twist, but it definitely did leave a big impact. It was a hell of a way to actually kick off the series.
Yes. The twist that the gum fruit is actually the human fruit mythical model Nika, the sun god.
I'm not actually a fan of this twist, honestly, because I don't know, it doesn't have as much significance for me as it feels like it should.
Yeah. The Wizard King Julius Novachrono was secretly also Lucius Zogratis, the fourth Zogratis sibling, and connected to Astaroth, the true third supreme devil before Megicula.
It was a good way of resolving that fourth sibling thing that had been lurking in the background, but more importantly than that, he's proved to be a good villain so far.
Yes, Master Luscious. Vegapunk got his knowledge of the Void Century from O'Hara, and Saul survived from One Piece.
These are all things that are relevant to me, and I understand them.
Okay. And then Lucky's mom dies long before Lucky's goal of the siblings playing for her could be realized. From
sad.
PPPPP.
Yeah. Sad face.
Yes.
I am going to go over into one of the nominations because I want to raise this point and how cool it was. For PPPPP, when Maloli, it turns out, had been just trying to get Mimin to quit from boredom so that she could be the #1 piano player, she was going to kill Mimin from boredom. That was insane. So in terms of like good what the fuck stuff, that's going to be it for me.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to dip into our wild cards here and say I really like the twist of Billy, who normally like, hey, this is like a side, like an anti-hero character who's going to become an ally. Like, there's weird motivations, but the justification that like, look, for me to try to use my ability, I had to make you all hate me, which is why I had to be a complete shithead to all of you guys, is a very, very cool reveal, and it fits into the context of that world with how weird negator abilities can actually work.
It was a nice thing to have, like, you know, a non-betrayal thing have a reveal like that and have it make sense and feel satisfying.
Yeah.
So, good pick.
And the audience picked that the gum fruit was actually the human fruit. I think I lean a little bit more towards you. I think Gear 5 is fucking awesome, but I'm not as huge of a fan of, like, Luffy ate the mythical sun god fruit. That's just a thing I kind of accept as part and parcel with Gear 5.
Mm-hmm.
Best fight, Nick. We have Luffy versus Kaido, Matt from One Piece, Mash versus Levis from Mashle Magic of Muscles, who I'm told is the magnet guy. Mash versus Domino, who I'm told is the water guy from Mashle. Tokiyuki and Fubuki against Toronto Shogun. Billy versus Ruin. Rain and Finn versus Deli Saster from Mashle. Everyone against Sun from Undead Unluck. And then everyone against Doom from Mashle as well.
Yeah. I just want to give a little bit of love to... Oh, I've forgotten his name. Shit. Surgeon guy from Undead Unluck with the blades.
Oh, Rip.
I've forgotten his
Rip
name.
and Andy?
Rip, yes. Rip and Andy.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good fight worth mentioning. It's not my pick for fight of the year, but I just didn't see it anywhere the nominations wanted to give to a little bit of love. My pick is going to be the fight with Shogun. I thought that was probably the last fight that I just super enjoyed in the Elusive Samurai, and just had a nice, satisfying conclusion and brutal one too.
I hadn't even thought about Rip and Andy until you said it, and that's a great one. I almost was about to just switch over, but I do have to think of like a fight that really is going to like carry the legacy. Like I have some fights where I'm like, I don't think anyone beyond me is remembering these. No one really is thinking back. Like, remember when Team 7 fought Boro? And you're just like, oh, I thought that was a good fight.
Yeah.
But Luffy versus Kaido is a fight that is going to go down as like an iconic fight of just so many reasons. It was a great fight just in general. There was a lot of really great action to it, a lot of false finishes, and the fact that you couldn't really enjoy it in one chunk. You had to enjoy it in like little snippets throughout like 17 chapters. But like it was a really exciting and dramatic fight, and I wish we could have just had like a bit more time to focus on some of the big dramatic beats of it. But great fight still. And the audience agreed with it as well. Luffy versus Kaido was their pick. Most improved character, Nick. We have had a lot of really good ones for this. So the nominees are Lucky for PPPPP, Chinatsu from Blue Box, Shogun, aka Shokan from the Elusive Samurai, Asta for Black Clover, Yoshida from Chainsaw Man, Fuko from Undead Unluck, and Finn from Mashle, and Nico from Undead Unluck.
Yeah. Nico definitely got some very valuable character development in this year. I kind of had forgotten until I went back and listened to our Blue Box recap that we were not really actually all that high on Chinatsu when we started doing Blue Box. And now, like, she's definitely a lot more endearing, and now that we've gotten to actually kind of know her more, so I definitely understand her nomination. I'm going to, however, go with Asta, because holy shit, I was not really a fan of this boy, and now I'm actually kind of invested in what he does in order to get his friends back and get back to where he needs to be.
I agree with that one as well. That is a good one. I'm going to go with Chinatsu though, because I try to think of it in like did I not give a shit about or just outright hate to now I really like. And at the start of Blue Box, it was I was like, I know he's never going to pick Hina, but I hope he does because she's the much better character. And it took some time to finally start to like show Chinatsu's personality. And I was like, yeah, Chinatsu fucking rules. And I really like how her personality is developing. The audience picked Fuko, who is a great character as well. I was already kind of high on Fuko, so that's why I didn't go with her for this, but she is extremely awesome.
Yeah. And now we've got the most important award of all.
Nick, this is yours. Do you wanna do this one?
I'll take us through this one. Sure. We have the Bleach Memorial Best Severed Limb Award. This is for the best case of a limb being severed, someone an arm being taken off or a leg being taken off. What makes it the best? Only Kubo Tight knows that. Hence why it is the Bleach Memorial Award. So our nominees are Andy cutting off all his limbs in order to make them all go attack Seal, because he like fires them like rocket fists and stuff. Asta cutting off Lucifero's arms before cutting through him. Doom cutting off Famine's arm as a warning against pointlessly killing off Cell War. Endeavor, his arm being stabbed through and then torn off by one of All for One's tendrils. The Cockroach Devil repeatedly getting his arm cut off by Denji. Chikara's arm getting lasered off by Sun. Shoji losing one of his arms to Spinner when Spinner got big and messed him up. And Luna, her arm getting sliced to pieces temporarily by Scheherazade.
There's a lot of good ones in there. A lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if I were being, if this were a more sincere category for me, that I would actually go with Endeavor's arm getting ripped off, because it's actually probably the most like consequential and dramatic. But that's not what this award is about. It is about arms being pointlessly taken off in a way that has no impact. Hence, I'm going to go with Luna's arm being temporarily taken to pieces because you know that that's not going to last. She's going to be fine.
Yes, in that same way, I really had to consider the energy of the award. It is not what was the best arm severing. It was what, in the memory of Bleach, what is the best severed arm? And I don't know if any capture that Bleach energy more. The Doom cutting off Famon's arm as a warning, and then Famon just being like, "Warp," and then there's just another arm being back, you know?
The only thing that would have been missing from that would have been Doom firing a Kido spell at the arm he had cut off and vaporizing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The audience, by the way, picked Chikara's arm being lasered off by the sun, which is extremely cool, but...
Well, the universe has been being reset, so that will also have no consequence. Well,
it's not the universe reset. We're time traveling forward and restarting it again. That Chikara did die after losing his arm. So,
oh no, I'm gonna see a Chikara walking around eventually after this, presumably, and then like, he's got 2 arms. Yeah. That was pointless.
That's true. The coolest moment, Nick. We got a lot of nominations here. Kid makes a big gun to take down Big Mom. We didn't start off on the best foot. He made a really big gun. Domino starts bragging about tanking Mash's punch squared attacks up to 256, and then Mash goes 65,536 hit from Mashle. From Undead Unluck, when face down by gravity, slice, and magma, Andy scoffs at them for thinking it's a 3-on-1, then separates his body, skin, and blood, or his skin, blood, and skeleton, and each of them take down an opponent. From Mashle, Rio Grant's cutting down all the giants. From PPPPP, the visualization of Sword Chica's performance of La Campanella. From Undead Unluck, Fuko using a gun and imbuing Unluck into her bullets. Also from Undead Unluck, Fuko revealing she's ripped and uses Unluck along with Shen's techniques to wreck Fang. And then finally, from Mashle, Mash repeatedly beating Doom hard enough to make him fall to the ground, only for Mash to give him the, fucking come here motion and tell him to get up over and over again.
For me, this is kind of a tricky one because it's Fuko running against herself. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, I guess, go with the Unluck Bullets gun, because that's just silly and awesome. But her also just like, for no real reason, just like revealing it's like, I'm also a cool martial arts expert who is also pretty cool. But Unluck Bullets, hell yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was between 2. It was the other one you just mentioned with the technique or Mash beating Doom hard enough. I'm bummed we didn't get to talk about that chapter because that was like a supremely cool moment of him just being like, get up. And then beats his ass again. And it's like, get up. You hurt my friends. But I am going to go with Fuko revealing she's ripped and then just using Shen's technique to beat Fang. It's such a fucking cool moment to see this character who was like a meek little fucking waif the entire start of the series and slowly came into her own and be like, you know what, I'm going to use my unlocked powers a little proactively, to now she's like, I'm a rip martial artist, I'm going to beat your ass while I punch you full of unlock. It's so fucking satisfying and cool. It was so fucking awesome. I really, really can't stress how awesome that moment was for me. The audience apparently tied with basically both the moments I mentioned with her being ripped and then Mash beating Doom up and telling it. Part of me is like, I wonder if this is recency bias, but no, all these moments were supremely awesome. And I think
they were all good.
Yeah. Maybe the big award, the crown jewel in Weekly Manga Recap, Nick, the Best Villain Award.
Yep.
Our nominations are Shao Arakawa from Akane-banashi, Big Mom from One Piece, Kaido from One Piece, Gakuan Odogami from PPPPP, Dosan from Doron Dororon. He had an entire saga named after him.
I kind of want to give it to Dosan.
Maloli Yamanaka from PPPPP, Fanta from PPPPP, and Scheherazade from Ginka Glüna. Now, Nick, we have the opportunity to both give Dosan our Villain of the Year award.
We could. We absolutely could. And then it would just be this weird blip in our history of just like, yeah, Dosan was the best villain this year.
It was incredible.
But I don't know. Like, I have enough sincerity left in my body that I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So I am going to instead go with and this is a little bit weird, but because there were some good villains in this year. Hell, even Lucifero was kind of fun. Even though he was just a final boss that just showed up. That was basically it. But there was one villain this year who had a villain motivation moment where you listened to it and went, oh, he's kind of got a fucking point. And that kind of makes me hate him more. And that's Isho. And I have to give that to him. He is the guy who kicked off the big plot motivation for our hero in Akane-banashi. There were some other, characters in those kinds of, more grounded series that, were very hateable in their own way, like Gakwan for just being an abusive shithead who doesn't care about anybody. For example, Fanto got to be very compelling towards the end of this year. And then there were, on the other hand, some cool big stuff from like Kaido and Big Mom. And God, Dosan, so I really want to give it to Dosan, but I have to go with what's really in my heart and say Isho was the best villain this year.
Okay. I want to put a wild card on Lucifero. I do think he should be nominated. He is, I thought, a good villain, and I thought his big fight with everybody fighting him was like entertaining. So I think he should be in there over, certain characters that maybe don't need to be in there. Gakwan hit his kids, but he's only been in like 4 chapters. I don't know if he needs to be villain of the year. He's a bad guy. He's a bad guy.
It's really just his presence more than anything. Yeah.
But for me, it's between two. I don't think anyone had like a monumental, like, holy shit year as like far as the series recap goes. But for me, it's between Isho and Kaido. And I agree with you on Isho, where Isho is like really like, if I thought of like the most tension a villain brought, it is definitely like those 3 chapters where like he was like, what's your name? And then he's like, all right, let's have this conversation. It does all that stuff with Akane. With Kaido, it was like, hey, here's like a big, battle shonen antagonist, but he also has that great speech about like, this is what losing a war means and all that. He really did seem intimidating. I think, gun to my head right now, I'm going to say Kaido, but I do think it could have been either one of them. So
totally get that.
And the audience agreed with you, Isho Aokawa as their antagonist, villain of the year.
Awesome.
Finally, Nick, we wrap this up. We have to do our best series of the year. We don't need to go over all the entries. We know all the ones that are in here.
We know we've talked about all the series here. Look, we've had some good stuff this year.
Yeah.
Black Clover was better than I ever expected it would be. Blue Box was a lot of fun. It was great to have Chainsaw Man back. We had some great conclusions for like Magu-chan and Dr. Stone. And then we also had some stupid good times from, the bad series, like Eden Zero and Boruto. But come on, it was the year of Undead Unluck. And I can't deny that. It was too good. Every week, it was too good.
Yeah, I agree. Undead Unluck, again, this isn't a question. Again, if you followed my MVP and character of the weeks, you're like, yeah, Quinn's obviously picking Undead Unluck. It's been stupidly good this year. Really one of like the most hype kind of like moments I can ever feel towards a manga, where I'm like, every week I'm like, I can't fucking wait. And like 90% of the time the chapter fucking delivers too. There's like so much emotion, so many cool just visuals, great lines. Like, I have it saved to my phone, just Fuko being like, hi Mr. Nico, you want to go kill God? Like, it's just great moments like that. And it really, like the audience picked had a tie between Akane-banashi and Undead Unluck, and I agree. Akane-banashi had a great year. Black Clover had a very good year. One Piece had a very good year. Blue Box had a very good year. Ginka Glüna has had a very good year. But Undead Unluck has had a great year in my mind. Like, I'm like, even that bit where Fuko's dead, I was like, yeah, Andy fucking ruled. That great fight with Rip, you know, the confrontation with Nico, the reveal with Billy, like all that stuff Fuko wasn't really present for, but was still amazing. So yeah, great stuff.
Yep. There was some good manga this year. I hope the same is true for 2023.
Yeah. I will say before we wrap this up, there are other awards that people can check out. In addition to the Superlative Awards, there are supplementary awards with categories like Best New Design, Best New Series, Best Arc. You can check those out over on Ninja X3i's Google Doc, which you can find in our Discord. The link is included in the description for every video. It is free to join. There is no expectation. It's just a fun place to come hang out and talk about manga if you'd like. And other stuff too.
Yep. There's also like bi-weekly game nights that get hosted on the server as well, and it's just a great source to keep track of all things weekly manga recap, such as like when the show goes live, which you can also do by following us on social media. Although that's in a little bit of an uncertain stage right now in terms of where you're going to be able to find us. For right now, she is at Rolo T. I'm at Nick F Time, and you can also follow at WMR Podcast, the a more official account where the announcements will go live from, as well as being on the Discord server. As mentioned previously, patreon.com/weekly manga recap for bonus stuff if you feel like giving a little bit of support to the podcast financially. Then if you just want to listen to all of our past stuff, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/weekly manga recap for video versions, which include an opening by Milo Jackson and Wesley Del Cheddar. Thank you guys for creating that for us. Also, you can see some thumbnails that are drawn by D.Gray-man, whose work you can see wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet. And you can follow him at D.Gray-man Art as well. Yeah, that's gonna do it. That's 2022, everybody.
Yes. It was a good time. This was a good year for the show. I think a good year for us too. I think we had a lot of fun together this year.
I got married. Like,
I guess, yeah. My brother died. That's not as good, I guess. But you know.
Oh.
But no, I mean, like, look, my year in general has been a very mixed bag for obvious reasons. Like, I came out this year, which is great. And started on hormones and like all that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, like some bad stuff happened too. But I think like for the show has been like a constant positive presence in my life. And I've greatly appreciated like the joy of getting to spend each week with like my best bud. Like I'm fun, you know? So
thanks. You're my best friend too. and not to just leave them out of it. Guys, I know we tease you sometimes, like when you give us weird recommendations to do, or when we tease you over like some sexy stuff that you like. But thank you all so much for continuing to support the show. We love interacting with you and being able to keep in touch with you and actually have this community that surrounds the show feel like a community. Thank you for joining us here each week when we talk about manga and have silly times together.
Yeah.
And thank you for enduring it when Quinn and I put 5 minutes aside every episode to talk about stuff that you don't care about.
Yeah, that's been my favorite wrestling. Is the fact that there are people here who listen despite the fact like 3 minutes, as you said, like 5 minutes of the show are devoted to just talking about wrestlers, a context that nobody seems to enjoy except the two of us. But I hear people are like, I listen to it, you know, I don't know who you're talking about, but you guys seem to have fun. And I hear some people are like, thank you for putting in a time commitment. Like, click and skip it. And both are equally valid. I appreciate that. Yeah, our Discord has been also one of the most monumentally important things to me this year. So I truly appreciate all you guys. All right.
Thanks. And we'll see you for the rest of this year.
Bye, everybody. See you in 2023. Oh, wait, the year's already passed.